The fleet emerged from slipspace on the edge of the Betrayal system. Dozens of ships filled the dark canvas of spacehuman cruisers, Corellian lancers, Dravarian storm frigates, and rebel-built vessels with no origin other than defiance. At their head, the Liberty moved with purpose, its hull patched from past battles, its engines burning brighter than ever. Noah stood on the command bridge, eyes fixed on the distant planet. Corel shimmered with blue clouds and silver rings. Beautiful and cold. A world that had ruled by fear for too long. Fleet in formation, Rachel reported. Sentinel has reached the outer defense network and is preparing the infiltration. Helena appeared on the secure channel. Final checks complete. All units await your signal, Noah, he nodded. Then we begin, the Liberty surged forward, broadcasting. One clear message across all Volari frequencies. The Accord calls for a peaceful end. The Council must stand down. There was no reply. Instead, the Volari home fleet powered its weapons. Lines of capital ships moved into defensive positions, gleaming. Like polished blades, Noah's hands tightened around the command rail. So they choose silence again. From the shadows, Sentinel struck first. Its EMP array disabled 2 Volari dreadnoughts before they could fire. A wave of rebel fighters followed, darting between ships, targeting engines and shield cores. The Liberty opened fire. The battle began. Bolts of plasma, kinetic rail slugs, and ion bursts lit up the void. The Phoenix danced through enemy lines, carving paths with precision strikes. Corellian ships used stealth fields to appear behind Volari formations, releasing silent torpedoes. The Dravarians fought with swift, coordinated strikes, cutting down targets with graceful efficiency. Despite the Council's numbers, they were on the back foot. Their strategies were designed to suppress, not to match the fury of free minds. On the surface of Corel, Council leaders watched the chaos unfold. Some still demanded full retaliation. Others whispered about surrender. The fractures Noah had hoped for were forming in real time, but the Council Chancellor refused to yield. Initiate protocol extinction, he ordered. It was an order to activate the Obsidian Array, hidden planetary defense system built to wipe entire fleets. Back in orbit, Sentinel intercepted the signal. They're powering something massive, Rachel said. Coordinates point to Corel's southern pole. We won't make it in time, Noah said, his voice steady. Unless someone gets close, the Phoenix turned sharply. Dana Ruiz's voice came across the comms. We'll take the shot. Just get us in. Opening, the Liberty and its escorts pressed harder, breaking through the outer shell of Volari ships. Sentinel cloaked again and disrupted the targeting grid. Phoenix flew straight for the pole, shields crackling. The Obsidian Array came online, but not fast enough. The Phoenix fired its full payload, tearing through the structure. A chain of detonations followed, sending debris into orbit. Flames danced along the planet's horizon. The defense system was gone. Noah reopened the comms. His voice calm but firm. This is your final call. Step down, surrender, or face what you've made us become. This time, there was an answer. The Volari Chancellor appeared, surrounded by other Council members. His voice was tired, his pride cracked. We were wrong. We tried to shape peace through control. And we failed. Helena appeared beside Noah on the broadcast, then disband the Council. Let the truth lead us forward. There was a pause. Then the Chancellor nodded. The Council dissolves. Effective immediately, across the system, weapons powered. Down, ships lowered their shields. The silence that followed was not fear, it was relief. The war was over. Weeks later, in orbit above Earth, a new station came online. It was not a fortress, but a meeting place. Representatives from dozens of species arrived not in chains, but in trust. They called it the Accord Hall. The Liberty was restored and placed at its heart, not as a weapon, but as a reminder. Noah stood with Helena, Rachel, and Marco. They looked out at the stars. We paid for truth with blood, Helena said. and earned our future with fire, Noah replied. So what happens now? Rachel asked. Now, Helena said. We build. The stars no longer belong to fear. They belong to everyone. The moon base was silent except for the low hum of power cells and the soft clicks of data streams feeding through the walls. Admiral Helena. Brooke stood alone in the main control room, watching old star charts scroll across a glass screen. Everything had changed since Captain Noah Grant brought her the transmission. One message. One secret. That was all it took to shatter the illusion they had all lived under for decades. In a small briefing room beneath the surface, Noah sat across from Helena along with Carla Bennett, an intelligence officer from Mars, and Marco Diaz, the Valiant's chief engineer. They had arrived quietly and without records. What they were about to discuss was still off the books, and if the council found out, it could cost them their lives. Carla leaned forward, her voice low. I've been gathering data from old Concord archives. Half of it is missing. The other half is rewritten. We have no real record of our own progress. It's all been filtered through Velari oversight. Marco scratched his head. That explains a lot. Every time someone gets close to a breakthrough in propulsion or energy, the project vanishes. Funding cuts, mysterious accidents. Even people disappearing. Helena nodded slowly. They didn't just hold us back. They rewrote who we were. Noah leaned back in his chair. And now we know. The question is, what do we do about it? Helena turned and walked to the screen behind her. With a quick gesture, she pulled up a series of blueprints. Ships, weapons, engines, all designed in secret over the last 2 decades by rogue scientists and thinkers who had started to suspect the truth. This is Project Orion, she said. A fleet we were building in case the council ever turned on us. It was meant to be a last defense. Now it might be the first strike. Carla looked at the designs, her eyes wide. These ships are generations ahead of what we're allowed to use. Exactly, Helena said. They use hybrid fusion drives, composite hulls, and recovered tech from crashed alien probes. We hid the pieces all over the asteroid belt. Noah stood and walked closer to the screen. How many ships? 3 major hulls are nearly done, Helena replied. The Liberty, a dreadnought. The Sentinel, a stealth cruiser. And the Phoenix, a rapid assault ship. There are also support frigates and fighters under construction, Marco grinned. That explains where half my best mechanics disappeared to. Helena gave a faint smile. We need more people now. More ships. And absolute silence. If the council learns about this, they won't wait. They'll strike before we're ready. Noah crossed his arms. Then we move fast. Bring in those we trust. Engineers, pilots, scientists, the ones who question things. Carla added, we'll need new eyes too. Spies, hackers, people who can watch the council without being seen. They all agreed. This was not a fight that would be won by force alone. It would take shadows, patience, and the minds of those long ignored by the system. Over the next weeks, the base on Luna became a nerve center for hidden resistance. Supplies were smuggled from mining colonies, and secret codes were passed between cargo freighters. A forgotten research hub on Europa became a training center. Mars shipyards, once controlled by corporate overseers loyal to the council, began to show signs of quiet rebellion on board the Liberty. Noah walked through the ship's main deck. It wasn't complete yet, but the heart of the ship beat strong. Engineers worked day and night, fitting armor plates and installing weapon systems. Every crew member knew why they were there, and none of them asked for permission. He stopped by a window and looked out toward the stars. Somewhere out there, the council still ruled, still lied, but now humanity was preparing. No longer waiting to be handed a future. He heard footsteps and turned. Carla approached with a small device in her hand. She handed it to him. We intercepted a new council communication. They know something is wrong. They're sending agents. We have to move the Liberty to a safer dock, Noah nodded. Do it. And keep the Sentinel offline until we can move it without detection. As Carla left, Noah looked once more out the window. The Council had lied, but now they would see what truth looked like when carried by ships made of steel and fury, and humanity wasn't afraid anymore. The stars over the asteroid belt shimmered with quiet light, but deep in the shadows, something powerful stirred. Hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid, Project Orion's shipyards were alive with motion. Welders sparked against metal fusion cores, glowed with pale energy, and ship frames towered like giants asleep. This was no ordinary construction. It was the forging of rebellion. The Liberty floated at the center, nearly complete. Its hull bore the marks of both secrecy and hope. Engineers ran diagnostics on its pulse cannons, shield modules, and stealth armor. The dreadnought was silent now, but its silence felt like a breath being held. Captain Noah Grant stepped onto the command deck of the Liberty for the first time since its systems had gone live. The hum of the core was steady beneath his boots. Beside him, Marco Diaz smiled as he monitored the internal systems. She's stable, Marco said. Power levels holding. AI integration is clean. We just need to finish the outer armor and run a few combat sims. Noah nodded. She's more than a ship. She's a message. Helena arrived with Carla, both fresh from a coded summit with Martian resistance leaders. Helena handed Noah a datapad. The Council suspects something. A scout drone passed near Jupiter orbit. We scrambled its signal, but they'll send more, Carla added. We also picked up something else. The Valari are testing a new type of control beacon on one of their frontier worlds. It forces loyalty through neural frequencies. Mind control. The room went quiet. Noah looked at the Liberty, then back at Helena. It's time. We've been hiding long enough. If we wait until they finish that tech, we may never get the chance to fight, Helena agreed. We launch in 3 days. Phoenix and Sentinel will escort Liberty to Proxima Point. There, we reveal ourselves. No more secrets, word spread quickly through the hidden crews. For some, the idea of revealing themselves brought fear. For others, it brought fire. Across scattered outposts, pilots were called back, engineers worked through the night, and volunteers signed up by the hundreds. They were farmers, traders, miners people with no medals, no rank. But they had purpose now. 3 days later, the ships launched from the asteroid belt like silent ghosts. The Liberty led, flanked by the Phoenix and Sentinel. The fleet curved through space, heading for Proxima Point, a neutral station used by traders, far from any major Concord patrols. But the Council was already waiting as the human fleet approached. The station, a Valari cruiser, appeared from behind a nearby moon. It hailed them. This is the Valari ship Relentless. You are in violation of Concord space. Identify yourselves. Helena took the call from the Liberty's bridge. Her voice was calm, steady. We are vessels of the Terran Accord, she said. We come in peace, but we do not come in silence. The Valari commander sneered. You are nothing but rebellious cargo haulers. Then let us show you what cargo can do, Noah said, and cut the transmission. The battle was fast. Phoenix darted in with shock torpedoes, disabling Relentless's engines. Sentinel slipped behind and hacked the cruiser's targeting systems. Liberty held position, shields raised, showing restraint. When the smoke cleared, the Valari ship floated powerless. Across the station and its network, human sympathizers activated hidden relays. A broadcast lit up across civilian and military channels alike. Helena's face appeared on every screen. We are the Terran Accord. We are no longer bound by the chains of fear and control. The Council lied to us, held us down, rewrote our truth. No more. Behind her, the Liberty came into view, massive and bright against the void. We do not seek war, she said. But we will no longer kneel. The message echoed across stars and stations. On Earth, citizens gathered in streets, watching in stunned silence. On Mars, miners cheered inside pressurized domes. On distant colonies, people whispered the name Liberty like it was a promise. In response, the Council labeled them terrorists. But in hearts across the galaxy, the spark had already caught. And now the fire was coming. The Liberty drifted silently. Above the rocky moon of Tether 3, its hull darkened to blend with the shadows of orbit. Inside, the crew stood ready. They were watching, waiting. News of the Terran Accord had exploded across the galaxy like a lightning strike in a dry field. And with that flash came fire. The Council's reaction had been swift. They called it an illegal uprising. They called it a terrorist broadcast. But none of their words could erase the image of the Liberty hanging bright in space, or Helena Brooks' words echoing across 100 worlds. Humanity had not been silenced. Not this time now. The Valari were moving to crush that hope before it could grow. A Council fleet was en route to intercept the Accord's ships. They would arrive in hours. Noah Grant stood at the front of the Liberty's command deck, staring at the tactical map as red dots closed in like claws. 4 cruisers, said Carla from the intelligence station. And 2 carriers, all Valari. They're not sending a warning. They're sending an end, Noah nodded. Then we don't give them the war they want. We give them the war they fear, down in the Liberty's hangar bay. Marco Diaz oversaw the loading of shock missiles and disruptor mines. The hangar was buzzing. Mechanics rushed between fighter craft. Engineers checked shield arrays. Pilots suited up with calm focus. Every movement felt heavier now, more urgent. No one was playing soldier anymore. They were defending a future, meanwhile. At a quiet asteroid base called Outpost Haven, a small band of colonists gathered around an old broadcast relay. A young girl stared at the screen, clutching a homemade flag with the Accord's rising star symbol. Her father, once a miner, now wore a sidearm and a flight badge. Will they come for us, Dad? She asked. They might, he said. But this time we're not alone. Back on the Liberty. The tension rose as the enemy fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Space shimmered, and the sky filled with the long bodies of Council warships. There, hulls glowed silver blue, weapons already primed. There would be no talking. The Phoenix and Sentinel broke formation, moving wide to flank the enemy. Liberty powered its shields and opened a channel to all nearby vessels. To any Concord citizens watching, Helena said, her voice broadcast on all bands, you are witnessing the moment we stop being tools of fear. The Valari wanted to break. U.S., but we are not made of glass. We are steel. The Valari fleet responded with weapons fire. The first blast hit Liberty's shield hard, lighting up the bridge in a flash of white. The ship held. Then the Phoenix roared in from the side, releasing a spread of torpedoes that split into hundreds of fragments, targeting engines and radar systems. Sentinel fired cloaked disruptors, slipping between enemy fire like a ghost. Inside the Liberty, the crew moved with perfect rhythm. The ship turned, dipping low to expose its railguns. In one precise volley, it crippled a Valari cruiser's drive core. The enemy ship spun out of formation. Then the Council carriers launched their drones. Hundreds of silver-winged machines poured into the space around the Liberty, buzzing like a swarm. But they met something unexpected. Prototype Terran. Interceptors piloted by Accord volunteers. Fast, nimble, and unpredictable, the human fighters darted through the chaos, drawing drone fire and clearing paths for the larger ships. Amid the stars, war became art. The battle lasted for 20 minutes. It felt like hours. By the end, 2 Valari cruisers were drifting. One had been destroyed, and the carriers were retreating. The Liberty, scorched and shaking, still stood. Silence returned to the edge of Tether 3, but nothing was quiet inside the hearts of those who watched. The news of the battle traveled even faster than the Council's denials. People shared clips, quotes, images. The words spread in whispers and in shouts. They fought back at Concord-controlled outposts. Low-ranking officers began to ask questions. On Valari-aligned worlds, students painted the Accord star on buildings before disappearing into the streets. Smugglers began delivering supplies to resistance groups. The old order was cracking. On board the Liberty, Noah stood beside Helena on the observation deck. Through the glass, stars glittered like silent witnesses to the truth. That was just the beginning, Helena said. Noah didn't smile. They'll come harder next time, she nodded. Then we make sure they find us ready. The Liberty turned away from the wreckage, heading into deeper space. The war wasn't over. It had only just begun. And now, the fire was spreading across the stars. The council chambers on Valari Prime pulsed with cold light. Transparent walls shimmered with coded glyphs, and the elite members of the Concord sat in a silent circle. In the center, a rotating image of the Liberty hovered above the florets. Battle data, damage reports, and broadcast transcripts laid bare. A ship the Council had labeled impossible was now their greatest threat. One Valari elder leaned forward. They shouldn't have been able to build such a fleet, another hissed softly. We underestimated their fire. Again, outside the chamber, the galaxy no longer listened quietly. The Accord's victory at Tether 3 had been witnessed on more than 50 worlds. Concord citizens began to wonder if the humans had been right all along. Old allies turned wary. Former enemies watched with interest, and deep in the dust-blue mountains of Sorelia, Ambassador Elian Rowe studied the battle. Footage in silence. He had never liked the Valari, never trusted the coldness behind their smiles. And now their fear was showing. He activated a private line to his Dravarian counterpart. They lied to the humans. They held them back. Now they're trying to silence them, Elian said. If they did it to Earth, replied the Dravarian, they may have done it to us. 2. The Alliance was beginning to fracture aboard the Phoenix. Captain Noah Grant met with 2 envoys in a hidden sector between stars. One was Sorelian, with silver skin and flickering eyes. The other, Dravarian, moved slowly as if gravity itself was unsure around her. Both had risked exile just to meet. You should have come earlier, the Dravarian said. But your battle spoke louder than any ambassador. We didn't come. For pity, Noah said. We came to show we won't be kept in chains. Not anymore, the Sorelian nodded. What do you want from us? Time and silence. Don't fight for us, not yet. But don't fight against us either. Let your people see who we really are. The Dravarian leaned forward. And if we agree? Noah looked out at the stars. Then maybe, one day, we stand together. Not as rulers and subjects, but equals. The meeting ended without handshakes, but it ended in peace. The Accord was gaining ground, not just through firepower, but through diplomacy. Humanity, once isolated and ignored, was now being heard, but the Valari were not done. They arranged a summit on the neutral moon of Tulvain. All member species were invited. Their plan was simple: paint the Accord as unstable, dangerous, and selfish. They would use fear to bring the Concord back under control. Admiral Helena Brooks arrived at Tulvain with a small escort, unarmed. She walked into the marble halls of the summit alone, with eyes on her from every direction. Valari guards flanked the room. Concord leaders sat in rows, many unsure what to believe. She took the podium. You know me. Some of you served with me. Others debated against me. But all of you know that I have never once spoken without cause, she said. The room was quiet. Helena raised her arm, and a projection blinked to life. It showed council files, records of interference, canceled tech programs, doctored history. Proof. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The Valari elders stood in protest, trying to shut down the display. But it was too late. The truth had landed. Then the bombs went off. Explosions tore through the summit halls. The ceiling collapsed in flames. Chaos erupted. Helena dove behind a support pillar as fire washed across the chamber. Valari extremists, disguised as guards, had planned the entire thing. They hadn't come to debate. They had come to silence. Back on the Liberty, Noah received the emergency signal. The crew sprang into motion. The Sentinel was already moving toward Telvain, cloaked and fast. The Phoenix launched ahead with a rescue team. When they arrived, the moon's surface was scarred. Survivors were few. But Helena was among them, wounded but alive. She was pulled from the rubble by a Cerelian medic. "They tried to make you a villain," the medic said. "But now, even my people know who set the fire." In the days that followed, the Concord fractured further. The Dravarians withdrew from the Council. The Cerelians declared neutrality. And small worlds that had never dared to speak now raised the Accord star alongside their own flags. The Valari still had power. But now they had fewer friends, and across the stars, a quiet truth began to grow louder. Humanity had not started this war, but they would finish it. The sky above Telnor Prime burned orange as two suns dipped behind the jagged cliffs. Smoke rose from shattered towers, and the ground trembled with distant thunder. But it was not a storm. It was the sound of war. Human warships, sleek and furious, had arrived in the Telnor system like a rising tide, and now that tide was crashing. Hard, for the first time in history, Earth's fleet marched into Council space not with hope, but with fury. On the bridge of the Liberty, Captain Noah Grant stood silent as battle plans lit up the table before him. Red markers showed Valari strongholds around Telnor Prime's orbit, while blue arrows charted the path of the Accord fleet. This was not a defense mission. This was retribution. Beside him, Carla Bennett reviewed enemy comms. The Valari didn't expect us to strike this deep, she said. They're scrambling their defense grids. Half of their fleet is still stuck at Ilion Station. Noah nodded. Then we hit them before they find their footing. Down in the hangar, Marco Diaz loaded the last of the ion cannons onto the escort frigates. One ship in particular stood out, a small, fast vessel named the Horizon. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't built to survive long. But its pilot, Lieutenant Ava Jordan, had volunteered for the most dangerous run of the mission, to take out the Valari Dreadnought's shield generator from inside its defense grid. Ava smiled as she checked her controls. "Just another joyride through hell," she muttered. The battle began just as the moons of Telnor Prime aligned. The Liberty charged forward, its pulse cannons lighting up the void. The Phoenix struck from high orbit, dropping shock bombs onto the enemy hangars. The Sentinel stayed invisible, slicing through comm lines and cutting off enemy coordination. But it was the Horizon that changed the course of the battle. Dodging flak bursts and anti-ship fire, Ava weaved through the enemy's shield corridor. Her ship spun and rolled like a comet on fire. Inside the Valari Dreadnought, alarms screamed as their generator core detected a breach. Ava's voice came through, calm and clear. "I see the core." Arming warhead, Noah clenched his fists, watching the data stream. Carla whispered, "She's not going to make it out." Ava's final message was quiet. "Tell Earth I lit the fuse." The Horizon vanished in a flash of white light. A second later, the Valari Dreadnought erupted, its shield network collapsing like shattered glass. Liberty surged forward, punching through what was left of the enemy line. When the dust cleared, the Accord held the orbit of Telnor Prime. The Council's fleet was broken, their signal towers destroyed. And across the stars, a name began to spread like wildfire. Ava Jordan, on a quiet ledge above the battlefield. Noah looked out over the ruins. He spoke to no one in particular. "We remember the lie. We remember the silence. And now they will remember us." Across the Accord, people mourned and cheered. Cities held vigils with lights shaped like the Horizon. Colonies painted stars with Ava's name at the center. Soldiers requested to serve under her banner, and more volunteers joined the fleet than ever before. Back at Lunar Command, Admiral Helena Brooks watched as the latest ships left the hidden docks. "We're no longer hiding," she said. "We're building something stronger than revenge. We're building justice." But the Council was not finished. In hidden chambers on Valari Prime, surviving elders activated a protocol not used in centuries code HFY. A counteroffensive built from desperation, deep AI weapons, ancient war, relics from before the Concord existed. They would rather burn the galaxy than lose their throne. One Valari commander stared at a hologram of the Liberty. "They do not understand what they have awoken," he said. But humanity did understand. They had seen what waited beyond the lie. And now, forged in steel and sacrifice, they would not turn back. The next phase had begun. The war was no longer about Earth. It was about truth. And truth was marching with the fury of a species that would not be silenced again. Valari Prime was a world of glass towers and pale skies, once thought untouchable. Now distant thunder echoed across its upper atmosphere as evacuation ships climbed toward the clouds. What had begun as whispers had become roars. What had been dismissed as rebellion was now a reckoning. The Terran Accord was coming. Captain Noah Grant stood on the bridge of the Liberty, silent as stars slipped past the viewing window. His face was tired, his uniform stained by weeks of conflict, but his eyes burned with focus. This was the final arc of a long story, a story written in betrayal, silence, and now fire. "We've crossed the last defense line," Carla Bennett said from the Intel console. "No Concord patrols, no warnings. Just static. They're falling back," Noah said. "They want to draw us into the heart." Admiral Helena Brooks appeared on the comm screen. Her fleet, including the rebuilt Sentinel and Phoenix, was moving in from the opposite flank. No more delays. "We hit them together. We leave nothing unclear." Behind Valari Prime's orbit sat the Radiance, the Council's last and greatest warship. A fortress more than a vessel. It housed the remaining Elder Council, AI minds older than some civilizations, and weapons forbidden under ancient treaties. To reach Valari Prime, the Liberty would need to go through it. As they approached, the Radiance sent one final message. "This is the seat of order. You will not pass." Noah stared at the screen. "We aren't asking." The battle began without a declaration. The Liberty fired first, railguns lighting up the Radiance's shields. The Phoenix danced through enemy flak, launching EMP charges. Across the outer hull, the Sentinel slipped underneath the main deck, its stealth systems weaving it like a blade beneath armor. But the Radiance was no ordinary ship. It struck back with precision. Its gravity lances ripped through 3 Accord corvettes. Its sentry drones swarmed like a silver wave, hulls bent. Lives were lost. But the Accord did not break. On the Liberty's bridge, alarms blared. Sparks flew from consoles. Still, Noah gave no ground. He moved between stations, guiding each strike, each movement. Helena's voice came through the tactical link. "We need to cut power to their central spine," she said. "That means getting inside." Carla stood up. "I can do it. Put me on a dropship. I can get into their data core and open a breach." Noah looked at her. She was bruised, tired, and fearless. He nodded once. Though, as the dropship launched, the Liberty moved to draw fire. The Sentinel cloaked and followed, slipping through the chaos. Inside the Radiance, Carla moved like a shadow, planting charges and overriding defense grids. For a moment, the entire enemy ship flickered. "Now," Carla said. Helena's fleet surged. Torpedoes streaked toward the Radiance's core. Explosions bloomed across its hull. Its shields dropped, and the Accord moved in for the final blow. Inside the Radiance, the Council elders tried to flee. But it was too late. The Accord wasn't there for revenge. They were there for truth. Data cores were copied. Files from centuries ago, plans, lies, edits to history were secured and sent to every major system in the galaxy. In one instant, the truth was laid bare for all to see. The Council's crimes were no longer rumor. They were fact. As the Radiance broke apart, the Liberty pulled back, escorting survivors. They hadn't come to destroy a people, just the lie that ruled them. Noah and Carla stood together in the observation deck as the burning pieces of the Radiance scattered into space. "It's over," Carla said softly. Noah shook his head. "No," he said, "but it's finally changing." Across the stars, the effect was immediate. The Velari surrendered. Their allies stood down. Former Concord members offered peace talks with the Accord. And on a dozen fractured worlds, people wept not because of war, but because truth had finally won. In a quiet ceremony aboard the Liberty, names of the fallen were read. Ava Jordan's was the last. A bell rang after each name. Not for sorrow, but for memory. Noah ended the ceremony with a simple line. "They thought we would forget, but we remembered. And we made them remember too." Velari Prime, once the untouched jewel of the Concord, now faced its future under the eyes of equals. And the Accord fleet, battered and proud, turned toward the next horizon. The reckoning had come, and it had come with steel. The space above Velari Prime was quiet for the first time in weeks. Wreckage drifted slowly in low orbit, a silent monument to a war that had redrawn the shape of the galaxy. Once, these skies had been symbols of control and fear. Now they shimmered with something new, hope. On the deck of the Liberty, Captain Noah Grant stood beside Admiral Helena Brooks as the sunrise lit up the planet below. No alarms, no battle plans, just the silence of a world ready to start over. Velari Prime had surrendered. The Council was no more. The leaders of the Terran Accord were gathering on the surface, not to conquer, but to rebuild. Noah adjusted his uniform as he stepped onto the shuttle ramp. "Funny," Helena said, walking beside him. "We never wanted a throne, just a seat at the table. Now we build a new table," Noah replied, "in the grand forum of what had once been the Council Hall." Delegates from across dozens of species met face to face. No translators, no towering podiums, just voices and stories. Survivors from Telner Prime, Cerellian rebels, Dravarian scholars, Earth pilots, and Martian engineers all gathered in the same circle. Helena stood before them. "This isn't the beginning of another empire," she said. "It's the beginning of balance, of truth, of peace made strong by honesty, not fear." The room stayed quiet. Then one by one, they began to nod. Some signed the Accord Charter that very day. Others sent word home, where people waited with held breath. The stars, so long ruled by secrets, now turned toward something different, a future built by all. Later, on a quiet hill outside the capital, Noah walked among rows of stone markers. Names were carved into each one, some human, some alien, all fallen in pursuit of truth. He stopped by one marked simply, Ava Jordan. A small silver wing rested at its base. "We kept our promise," he said quietly. Carla Bennett approached from behind. "It doesn't feel like a victory, just an end. That's what victory should feel like," Noah replied. Back in orbit, the Liberty had been refitted. No longer just a warship, it was now the Accord's flagship. Its hull gleamed with new colors, not just Earth's, but shared banners from every founding world. The Phoenix and Sentinel flanked it like guardians, their crews already assigned to peacekeeping roles. Marco Diaz supervised the upgrades, laughing with engineers from 5 different species. "Didn't think I'd be building bridges with Cerellians, but here we are," he said, handing off a tool to a 6-armed mechanic who grinned back. Aboard the Liberty, young cadets now trained in open classrooms. Veterans taught not just tactics, but ethics, diplomacy, and history. Real history, no edits, no omissions. The Terran Accord wasn't hiding anything. People across the galaxy began to call it the Bright Era, not because of light from stars, but light from truth. Velari cities, once cold and quiet, now buzzed with the energy of trade, rebuilding, and exchange. Dravarian healers set up clinics beside Martian architects. Human farmers shared crop tech with Cerulean botanists. For the first time, knowledge flowed freely in the Accord Assembly. The newest addition sat quietly, a Velari representative. Young, thoughtful, and unafraid to speak of their people's guilt. They faced hard questions and answered them all. "We can only repair what we admit," they said. The Liberty took its first voyage as a flagship 1 month after the fall of the Council. Its mission was not conquest, but connection. It visited colonies left behind by war, helped build medical stations, and delivered food to stations that once watched in silence. Noah stood once again on the bridge, watching a blue planet rise before them. It wasn't Earth, but it had Earths. "Colors, status?" he asked. Carla, now first officer, smiled. "Beacon received. They're waiting for us. Then let's go." The Liberty moved forward, not as a weapon, but as a promise. Across the stars, children learned names like Ava, Jordan, and Helena Brooks. They studied the fall of the Council not as revenge, but as warning. They memorized the Accord Charter alongside star maps. They didn't just learn who they were. They learned how easily the truth can be stolen if no one stands guard. And at the center of it all was a single reminder, etched into every ship, every terminal, every school. We remember the lie, but we also remember what we became because of it. Humanity had shaken the stars, and the stars would never forget.